Hi, hello, hope you're having a lovely day so far. I'm Abby Geigerman, the author of The Power of Shadows, and today I'm going to show you how I design my cover from start to finish, taking it from this to this. Decided to self-publish The Power of Shadows, I knew I wanted to design my own cover, but I didn't know what the steps were to get from the idea to the final execution of having it in my hands. And so that's what this video is. It's all in one place, every single step I took to get from my first initial sketch to the final product. Now, I'll also be going over some of the price points. I tried to do this as cheaply as possible, but of course you can always do this if you have a little bit extra budget to spend. I did it bare bones. Now, the tools that I used for this were Procreate, which is $10 one-time fee. It's an app for the iPad. Photoshop, which can be $10 a month recurring, but if you get your cover done in 1 month, that's just $10. Figma, which is an online software kind of similar to Photoshop, but usually used for web development, and I'll speak on how I use that later. There was also KDP/Ingram Spark to get the specific formatting templates for my book cover, given the number of pages that were in the book. And finally, finding free fonts online. So in total, you could do this with as low as $20 if you already own an iPad and you can get it done within 1 month. But there's also cheaper ways to do it. I just think that this is the minimum amount that I had to spend in order to get the quality that I was looking for. The first step was to sketch out ideas. So here I sketched out anything and everything I could think of that could be related to my story, different iconography, pictures. For me in particular, I sketched out a lot of elemental elements because there's a magic system where people have magic based on the seasons in my book. I also used a lot of patterns of dark and light because there are powers that are related to shadows and the sun. And so I was trying to come up with different ways to combine these elements that could allude to the book, but also be alluring and consistent with the genre. Now, the second step was to take some of these initial designs, pick the top few that I liked, and then sketch them out a little bit more fully in Procreate to see what they looked like. Now here I chose like around 3 to 5 to continue sketching and iterating in Procreate, and that is where I got to see some of the more fully blown out drawings that were a little bit more rendered than just using pencil on paper. Now, the third step was to bring some of the top contenders from Procreate into Photoshop. Some of these I just exported the specific elements that I had drawn, whether it be a specific hand or a specific sun. Other times I exported the entire image as if it was going to be the book cover, and then I brought it into Photoshop where I could start editing it, playing around a little bit more with things like color, arrangement, and then again text. Now, a small aside for fonts, there are some basic fonts that come with either Photoshop or Procreate. I do not recommend doing your typography within Procreate. It's not really that easy to use, which is one of the primary reasons why I had to do both Procreate and Photoshop. As far as Photoshop, there are a good number of options, but if you want to look for a font that specifically fits within your genre and looks pretty consistent with all the other ones, I would go look online. There's a number of paid options, but also a number of really good quality free ones as well. And that's what I ended up going with, was downloading a few different free options that I think would be consistent with the genre, and then started playing around with those. Then once I had a number of options varying things like the color profile, the text, whether the main title was at the top, middle, or bottom, as well as a different iconography as well, that's when I took it to friends, family, and had people vote on what had the biggest impact. And also during this step, I found a number of titles that I thought were comparable, took their covers, put them all together, and then put mine in the middle to make sure that it looked consistent with the rest of the genre. Okay, we're racing through this. Next, after I had the final design as I liked it, as most of my friends and family found it as the best, and as it compared to other titles in my genre, that is when I started going to cover formatting. Now, for cover formatting, you need to not only think about the front cover, but also the spine and the back cover, as well as how the barcode will fit onto the back cover. So for this step, you can go to whichever site you're choosing to publish on, whether it be KDP for Amazon or Ingram Spark for wider distribution, or another provider for wide distribution. I personally did both Ingram Spark and KDP so that my title could be available through Amazon and then also to local booksellers and on Barnes & Noble and all the other sites that do not use Amazon's distribution. I can go into all of those details in another video, but for now, we're just talking about getting the formatting correct for your cover. So both of these sites have an option where you can go in, select the number of pages you want, and then select the cover size. And from there, you can download a template that will have both the spine, the margins, and where is print okay, so that you know this section will have an area that this will definitely make it on every book, no matter what. This template will usually also have an example of where the barcode might go. Now, it differs from different providers. So this is the Ingram Spark version, and as you can see, it has it in the middle, and then the Amazon copy has it on the side. So you want to make sure that whatever you do for your back cover copy and the final design, you leave room for wherever the barcode may go. Now, another thing to consider when doing your spine is that different paper weights will determine how thick your cover is. So if you're going to go through multiple providers like I did, you're going to need to have a separate template for your Kindle version, or for your KDP Amazon version, and for the Ingram Spark version. The Amazon paperweight was a little bit thicker. So as you can see, the Amazon cover is significantly thicker than the Ingram Spark. And in fact, the Ingram Spark had a slight misprint in my first initial copy, and the spine was not completely centered. So you want to ensure that you test both templates separately and that the copy on your spine is completely centered for both. You also want to ensure that you have a few different fonts, so it's not one font across the entire thing. For me, I had one font that was for the title and then the spine, separate copy or separate font for my name that went both on the spine and on the front cover, and then finally a simple readable font for the back cover copy or jacket copy if you're doing a hardcover, and a different font for the kind of tagline on the back. This is where I also took those same elements from Procreate that I had used for the front cover and tried to bring them onto the spine and then also onto the back cover to make the design consistent throughout. And how I did that was just imported the same little file that I had for these elements and then tried to bring it consistently throughout. A quick aside, this is completely optional, but on my spine, I also included a little logo for my publishing company. Since it is self-published, this is just you, but you have the option to put in a publishing company name everywhere you have it. And so I created this little logo in Figma, and that's what I use for that, which is, again, a free tool on the web. So at this point, you should have your front cover, you should have your full template file with your front cover, to spine, to back cover, ensuring that all text is within the safe readable area. And if you are doing both Amazon and Ingram distribution, you should have a copy for both. And from there, we get to the exciting part where you can choose to order yourself a copy to make sure that everything looks good. Now, this step is very important. Please don't skip this. For your book, you can choose to either have a matte cover, kind of like this, or a shiny cover. Don't judge this. This was the example copy that I had ordered myself when I was excited that I finished writing it. And so this is the example of a shiny cover. Personally, I think a matte cover looks a little bit better from these providers. It looks a little bit higher end. You just have to consider, if you're designing for a shiny cover, that there will be often glare coming off of the page, especially if you choose darker colors. So you order your sample copy, and this is where you have to check all three things that you have. You check the front cover, make sure that it is centered, aligned, everything that you wanted to make sure got on the page, because some things get cut off. Some, things might get skewed a little bit from copy to copy, and you want to ensure that everything looks a-okay. You also want to ensure that the spine is centered. This one was a little bit of a personal pain for me. And then finally, again, make sure that the back cover is copied, the barcode is visible and doesn't obscure any of your art, and that it all looks good. And from there, you can a-okay it. You finished. Now, I know that this was a bit of a speed run through the entire process with a bird's eye view of how you actually design your cover from start to finish. If you have any questions about specific parts of the process or want me to go into more detail about any given step, please comment down below. And if you haven't already, subscribe to get more updates on reading, writing, indie publishing, and all things creative. See you in the next one.